I have a problem with people only going after Charlie Kirk, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that what he's saying is not true or there's not some historical facts there. But Chad O. Jackson, a black guy, I think they're going after Charlie Kirk because he's white.
We want to sit in the white man's restaurant. Like, why do we just feel the need to continuously have government just force us into their lives?
Speaking of black people, let's go to clip 2. Charlie Kirk was talking about MLK. So let's go to clip 2 real quick.
You watching?
Legislative priorities that needed to be done by the federal government to stop bitter segregation. I've always held that. But the Civil Rights Act went way further than that. And Christopher Caldwell's book talked about the American people thought they were getting minor legislative adjustments to say that segregation based on race is evil and wrong. In reality, what they got was the birthing of a permanent deep state of bureaucrats that were looking for racism where it didn't exist, eventually with affirmative action quotas and hiring practices, expanded beyond race into LGBTQ type issues. And so what the civil rights era really birthed was this idea that it's the federal government's job not just to say that discrimination is wrong, but to actively go against any sort of disparate outcome and try to even the score under the guise of equity. Those are two different things, Jason.
So Charlie Kirk was talking about, some of the things that have passed as a result of the Civil Rights Act and things that Martin Luther King, were advocating for. First, have we taken that, the idea of equity and equality as a result of the Civil Rights Act, have we taken that too far?
I think we have in many ways, and I want to say in a general sense, just like the Civil Rights Act and any other law, our Constitution is our foundation for the United States. Any law, as the government gets bigger, the people get smaller. So any law is right. What do we have in Congress and at every level of state government? Most of those people are lawyers, right? So any law is ripe for abuse, for expansion, and for overriding or undermining our rights, not just the Civil Rights Bill. I have a problem with people only going after Charlie Kirk, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that what he's saying is not true or there's not some historical facts there. But Chad O. Jackson, a black guy, I think they're going after Charlie Kirk because he's white. Mm-hmm. Because Chad O. Jackson has been having the same conversation.
Oh, yeah, and it's been good.
So Crystal, is it wrong to go after Charlie Kirk for bringing some of these things up?
So I actually appreciated him doing it because I have been listening to, before Chad O. Jackson, I've been listening to He is Blanchard, he is Blanchard, and he's a podcast. Y'all gotta go see him. But he has been talking about this for years, and he was talking about. But he says it funny because he's a comedian. But he was like, black folks when this was happening, MLK, these white folks just wanted to be left alone. And black folks could have asked the government for anything. They could have said, we want jobs, we want anything. They said, we want to sit in the white man's restaurant. Why do we just feel the need to continuously have government just force us into their lives?
Actually, before then, they asked for the 40 acres and the mule. That's where the whole 40 acres and mule came from, because the Republicans, back in the 50s, 60s, whatever era that was, they said, black people, we know we messed up. What can we do? Republicans, after we were free, give us 40 acres and a mule. And that's where that comes from, because the black people wanted 40 acres and a mule.
Well, we didn't get it. So instead of getting 40 acres and a mule, we want to pay the white man. We want to sit on the white man's bus. We want to go to their restaurant. We want to eat their burger. We want their pie. Like,
I would have been fine with separate but equal.
Yeah,
We could have kept it as that.
And that actually, what you're talking about, that actually affected black businesses. That's what I've read, that actually what happened is that when it became desegregated, black people went into all these white businesses to shop because it was considered prestigious to go there instead of a black business. And so that actually destroyed a lot of black businesses.
And they still have that mentality now. But the white man is golden.
Well, see,
Everything
that's
that the
what-
white man does is perfect.
Right.
And this is why they think that they're oppressed, because the white man, white supremacy is keeping everybody down.
Well, let me I guess jump in right there, because what's happened as a result of the civil rights movement is now a lot of other, let's say, minority groups or oppressed groups have taken this as an opportunity to use these pieces of legislation to get equal rights
mean the alphabet
for
community.
just any group. So it's essentially using the struggle of black people in America for against the white man.
I was just talking to a white lady a few days ago because she tried to identify a struggle with me. Oh, my parents, we grew up poor, we grew up this, and I have to stop it right there. You're not gonna trauma bond with me. I don't identify as a struggle. My life wasn't a struggle. So you're not gonna come to me and say, oh, I feel for you and I understand because I struggle too. This is what the Democrats have done. They've made it easy and they've made it okay to struggle and have and to be oppressed.
Be a victim. To
be a victim.
To feel like a victim.
Now, see again, I am not, whether you all like it or not, I am not ready to throw out Martin Luther King with the bathwater. I agree. There are some challenges, some hard parts, if you will. That's all a part of his life and his era, right? I think I'm going to quote Delano Squires. Because he was on with Chad Jackson talking about this. And basically, I'm going to paraphrase him. Delano Squires said that we conservatives today, we are a little bit arrogant because we tend to think that we forget that at any various point in a man's life, sometimes his creeds don't line up with his actions. That's for any of us. We forget that. And yes, people will bring in the founders. Well, the founders had slavery. And even Delano said this. Well, when people say that, the conservatives like, oh, no, you can't talk about the founders. Well, if we're talking about Martin Luther King, we have to acknowledge what the founders did as well. And we are all Republicans. We're all conservatives. We can still support American values in the Constitution. So this is what people forget. I'm not throwing out Martin Luther King with the bathwater. I will say, from a historical perspective, that era, I think, was good at the time.
So let me ask this before you go.
For the consequences that came about.
So let me say this, right? So I am a big fan of Mr. Manning Johnson, right? And I recommend anybody out there to read the book Color Communism and Common Sense. I've shared it with our group here, and I preach it to our team almost religiously. But so my question to you, and I'm gonna go to you with this, Yana, was Martin Luther King kind of like the leader that they needed to bring in some of these policies and positions to get essentially black people, particularly, thinking a different way where they're less self-sufficient and need more from the government?
Yeah. Definitely. So what Shelley said something, but let's not throw him out with the bathwater. Well, that makes me think of the country where I'm from. And
what's that?
I was born in Russia. We had Lenin, who brought in Marxism into the country. Well, unfortunately, we can't throw him out either. But how much?
Because Vladimir Putin still admires him. But go ahead. That's a different story.
That's like saying
no.
don't
Vladimir
throw Hitler
Putin
out.
actually
Can't throw Hitler out either.
Finish your point, Yana. Finish your point,
actually
Yana.
criticizing him a lot.
that's different.
But my point is, Marxism brought certain things into Russia. For example, equal rights for men and women. That was so okay. But then, how much negativity? How much negative things? How many terrible things it also brought? So with Martin Luther King, I am convinced that he was being coached by Marxists. I am absolutely sure about it.
All right, so
Yeah,
Crystal, you have something to say.
Yeah, because I actually like watched the Charlie Kirk interview, and we're not talking about a person who he was like, if what is reported was true, like Marxism was the least of what he did. Like they talked about how he was literally evil, which we know from Marxism, that's what comes about. They said that he would rape women, he would do drugs. And so yes, we throw the baby out with the bathwater when the baby is found to be
he raped women.
Oh yes, he
All right, so hold on.
Okay.
Before hold on.
Hey, Gabe.
Hey, Chadwick, can we play clip number 3?
It was bad.
To reiterate one other part, Martin Luther King was a self-described minister. He participated, at the very least, in dozens of extramarital affairs on his wife. That is well documented. He definitely participated in orgies. And according to certain government documents, which again, they're FBI documents, so they might be real, they might not be, because we don't trust the FBI, that he very well might have encouraged and laughed while a woman was being raped in a hotel room in one of his very famous orgies. When a man of the cloth who says he's a man of God does that sort of pattern or behavior, I don't think he should have a higher approval rating than Jesus. So how do we explain that? We explain that we have built this mythology around MLK in the modern era. Now, some myths are important, Jason. I'm actually okay with certain myths. I'm okay with certain people of history being larger than life and something we aim towards and something that we want to lift up. But we must be very careful when we do that.
So, I mean, it's been a rough year for Martin Luther King. But what makes him different than Jamal Bryant?
Well, I don't know if anything makes. I don't know that.
I got it.
That question, but okay. But I will say this. Even to your point about him being evil, even Charlie Kirk, I watched that whole interview. Even he said he would not go as far as calling Martin Luther King evil, right? We can disagree with and I would disagree with that. And he even made the clarification there that some documents, maybe you might not take them for face value because they were FBI and all of the COINTELPRO that goes along with that. However, I'm not poo-pooing or downplaying the possible menace in those personal arenas that Martin Luther King may have been. I am saying that for that era of time, and maybe he did not predict the outcomes in the latch-on groups to use that movement. I think for historical purposes, the civil rights movement, not necessarily the laws that came about, but the movement was necessary for America at that time. That's what I'm going to say.
All right, so why wasn't that movement necessary?
First of all, if we believe that our rights are endowed by God and he's a man of the cloth, then we don't need, first of all, I hate that word, like civil right. Like, what does that even mean? And it just, to me, meant that we are begging white folks, please accept us, please see us as human beings, please. And he is a man of the cloth. They actually talked about how back then, the preachers could not stand him because of the movement that he was trying to get people to accept. And we're seeing it today. I mean, like, even with the LGBTQ, there's this lady, I was trying to find her name on my phone. Like, she's being sued by a gay couple because she's a Christian and she doesn't want to make their dress. Like, this is exactly what the civil rights kept doing. It's like forcing people who probably eventually would have ended up liking us or working with us. Eventually, it would have naturally happened because, I mean, we're cool, we're talented, we're smart. If we would have let it naturally happen, but when you beg the government to force something like civil rights, it's never gonna, and that's why we are in this mess that we're in. Okay.
So
Hold on, go to T. Yeah.
I don't understand till today how he got the title Reverend. Because he never preached gospel.
No, he didn't. No, he did not.
Always was about civil rights and segregation and all of this stuff. He never, like, the preachers that I know, that's why the preachers didn't like him back then, because he wasn't preaching.
They put him out.
They never said, preach, pastor. To Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King. He was one of those guys, and as a former church girl, I know the church like the back of my hand. He was one of those people, you call him Doc, and that's because he went to seminary school, and he never really got a PhD, period.
Yeah, I don't know if he actually believed in God.
No.
Honestly, I don't trust that he believed in God. I'm convinced that he was an actual Marxist. And so you can tell how other Marxists behave. So our leaders, Marxist leaders like Lenin, he had a STD at the end of his life, like that he was couldn't treat, and so they're known for their behavior. So, and in terms of what you were saying, Crystal, the whole forcing of the civil rights, I agree. So I do think that there should be equal opportunities.
That's what I mean
So
about the movement.
right.
Separate but
So
equal.
there's well, I mean that for example with schools. So I think that people should be able to go to any school that is out there. However, when they were busing kids from one place to another and bringing them to a neighborhood that they didn't even live in, what is the point? Why create more animosity than there was in the first place?
Does. The government, again, the bigger the government, the smaller the people. So, I mean, that's just an axiom that I borrow from Dennis Prager. And we see that still playing out. I just think the civil rights era, Martin Luther King, I think it's a mixed bag. And at this point, I'm going to stand where I started. I'm not ready to just throw it all out. I think we can glean some things from it, positive and negative.
You got churches not even
hold on.
having like weddings.
I'm just going to remind everybody to definitely go check out Color, Communism, and Common Sense. An excellent book. Read chapter 2, and it actually goes into a lot of how the communists used black leaders, particularly the church, because the church was the center of influence in the black community. So you get a little pastor, he get that little twang going up in his voice, and you know, you got some black people following you. So